Hello, I'm Nobby Clark. Welcome to my workshop. I wanted to make this video a sort of a workshop roundup of things that I've done in the workshop over the last year, and various tools and things that have been added to the workshop as well. I guess over the last year the biggest thing that's happened for the workshop was being able to add a DRO to my milling machine. This was a very, very kind gift from the subscriber to my channel that reached out to me and said he would like to supply this to me for the milling machine. It's made such an incredible difference to my work in the workshop here. It again a big learning curve as well, learning some of the functions of the DRO itself. I mean, I can't say I've learned everything you could possibly do with it, but using it even just to find the centre of pieces of material and measuring spaces along a workpiece to drill holes for tapping, and I have actually used the bolt circle function of the DRO as well. But as time goes by, as I find out more uses for it, then I'll learn those particular functions. I didn't think it was worth trying to learn everything it would do in one go, because knowing me, I'd probably just forget how some of these functions work anyway. So I thought, as the need comes up, as I say, I'll learn those functions as I go along. I'm going to move the camera and sort of take you around a bit of the workshop, just to show some of the things that I've manufactured myself, and some of the additions as I mentioned. Before I get into this though, I would like just to show you this. It's my first ever workshop sticker that I received from the Knackler's Workshop. This is Paul of the Knackler's Workshop. I guess a lot of you are familiar with Paul's channel. He's a time served engineer, and I guess this is sort of now his hobby. He does actually have a couple of channels on YouTube. And I'd mentioned to Paul some time back that I was hoping to produce a little sticker for my own workshop, which I actually have done now. Of course, didn't think to bring one into the workshop to show you, but I do have a little workshop sticker, and I said to Paul that he would be the first one I would send one to, because he said he would like to have one of my stickers to put up in his collection. So I mean, if you're not familiar with the Knackler's Workshop, do have a look. You know, it's a very, very interesting channel. Paul is very much into bicycles and cycling, and restoring tools for the workshop as well. So give him a look. One other big gift I did receive to the workshop was this lovely set of slip gauges. They're imperial slip gauges, or gauge blocks. Again, a very, very useful thing to have, because I'm getting very much better in making measurements of things in the workshop now, using particularly micrometers and using my height gauge on the surface plate as well. So these are going to be sort of very, very useful for the future as well. One thing I've added to the milling machine fairly recently is a much beefier fly cutter. This one's mounted onto a Morse taper 3, which will go directly into the spindle of the milling machine. When I bought this, it came with a high-speed steel tool, but I wanted to have a carbide cutter on it, so I modified this left-hand carbide cutting tool to fit in here, and it works fantastically well. I was having trouble with my workshop built fly cutter with a high-speed steel tool in it on fly cutting steel, it did blunt very, very quickly, but this one works beautifully now, so I can fly cut all manner of materials now without any problem at all. I'm going to move the camera around to different parts of the workshop so you can see some other bits and pieces that I've done, some sort of quite minor things really, but even doing minor things in the workshop still take up a fair bit of time, so bear with me just for a second. Now we're round here now to the my Myford lathe. I mean, all the things that I've made for the workshop, I mean, I have already mentioned most of these things before anyway, but one thing I did make during the year was a very, very simple holder here for some of the lathe tools. When I was machining things on the lathe, obviously I was getting in a sort of bit of a muddle having these tool holders lying all over the place, so I thought I'd make a very, very simple rack just to hold a few of them. I mean, I do have quite a large collection of tool holders now for the Dixon tool post, so I thought I'd make this just to hold the tools that I'm using for the particular job on hand. It's just basically a piece of wood screwed onto this splashback here with some little angle brackets, and the tools can just simply be slipped on here. This tool, I mean, all these things I've shown before, but I've made this double-ended tool holder to hold a couple of carbide inserts here, so this can be used in either direction on the tool post, and that of course can be stored on here as well. Something I don't think I did show in the past was normally the tool post is held in position just with the tool post nut, but to make the operation a lot faster, I did make this locking handle for it as well, so I can sort of lock that in position. I do keep the original locking nut on hand because in some instances this won't actually by hand lock this down tight enough. It was more useful when I was using my old knurling tool on the lathe, and I can obviously lock this down with a spanner just to hold in position, but for a lot of operations this is I can lock this strong enough to hold tools in position, so it was just something, a very, very simple turning job to make this one up. I think the only problem I had was that, you know, when I made it I didn't have a tap to cut the thread in the bottom of it, so I had to sort of work out what the thread was on the tool post thread inside here. So once I've worked that out, I was able to order a tap so I could tap that, and that can then be sort of locked firmly in position. Move the camera around again, bear with just a moment. Another thing I added recently was another toolbox that I have 4 of these now. I have 3 of them over near my desk at the front of the workshop, which I keep a lot of the milling machine and lathe tools in, and all the various measuring tools, micrometers and sort of vernier gauges and everything like that. But I wanted to get another one, and these come from a British company called Halfords. I'm sure these are available all around the world from various DIY shops. They're made in China obviously, so they can be just labelled up. This is just a stick-on label that Halfords put on them. And I keep an eye on, was keeping an eye on Halfords' website, because every so often they have these on special offer, and these can literally be bought for under £30 each. The first one I ever bought was actually a 4-drawer cabinet, obviously a lift up lid, so you could store things in the top here. But since buying that one, they seem now only to have 3-drawer ones, unfortunately. But I mean, it does the job. This one, I'm storing all my drill sets in, and taps and dies at the moment, just to keep them all in one place, because I had all these various indexes on shelves in the workshop, and I was just getting in a bit of a muddle with them, so I thought it'd be quite nice to sort of get them all stored basically in one place so I can find them easily. Whether I'll quite keep them that way, I don't know yet, but at the moment this is working out quite well for me. It would have been really nice to have had a real old wooden toolbox, really, engineer's toolbox, but they seem to have got so expensive now, even buying them second hand. You know, a lot of people seem to be looking out for particularly the Moore and Wright ones, which have become colossally expensive. This may be because they are quite often now being used by people for various collections of things, perhaps, you know, items for fishing, you know, fishing tackle and all the bits and pieces there. People keeping, or ladies keeping jewellery in them, and various collections of things, collections of pins and coins and various things like that. So I think the wooden ones have been in quite heavy demand now. Anyway, now I'll move the camera position again, and I'll show you some other bits and pieces on the bench. Okay, we're at the bench now, and I've laid out some of the items that have been added to the workshop in the last year, and some of the things that I've actually made myself. This year I've made only 2 engines. This one we'll call engine number 9. It's basically a simple wobbler engine, but what I wanted to make was something different to the one I previously made, which was the first engine I ever made about 7 or so years ago, and I wanted to make this with a fairly small but quite heavy flywheel, which actually hangs sort of lower than the frame itself, so I had to mount it onto this base so that it could be revolved. Works very, very nicely. It was such a simple engine, it's sort of engine that worked first time, but basically I just sort of, it's scratch built. I just sort of built this as I was going along, so it was a live design really, but quite enjoyable to build and sort of different to anything else I'd made. The next one was the last engine I've made this year is this one, which I've called engine 10, but it's if you look back at that in my previous videos, you see that I bought a Mammoth engine like this in an antique curio shop, and I'd cleaned it all up and did a sympathetic restoration to it, and it was on doing that I thought it'd be an interesting project to actually make my own version of it, which I've done here. I mean, if you're interested in this, you can look back through my previous videos and see the details on this. This again runs beautifully. I made mine with a copper boiler, where the Mammoth one, the boiler is made out of brass. But that was again, I did some plans for it, but a lot of it was again sort of made up as I went along. But one thing I wanted to do was to make all the mounts and everything here much heavier duty than the Mammoth one. But a nice project, and I learnt quite a lot from making this, various things that I'd not done before. Quite a lot of soldering's required here, and sort of work, sort of sheet metal work, if you like, making the base and the boiler frame. During the year I did some experimenting on cutting tapers on the lathe. The first thing I made as a sort of practice session was making a couple of Morse taper cleaners. The wood I use here literally just was a broom handle that I bought from our local DIY store, and then used some self-adhesive felt so these can be pushed into the tapers and just revolved round to clean. You can see this one's quite dirty. That's been used quite a bit. This is a cleaner one, but I made two of the Morse Taper 3 size. So that was quite an interesting project to do, turning some wood on the lathe as well. Very messy job actually. You can see here the surface plate. Again, this was a gift from a subscriber that I was using, basically about a 1/2 inch thick stone plate that I bought from their local supermarket. It was a cutting board basically. I'm not even sure if it was granite, but I did use that for quite a number of years to do measuring on, but obviously with a proper granite surface plate it's going to make the operation so much more accurate now. And I recently purchased this. It's an APE height gauge, which I've made a scriber for as well, so I can do measurements and use it as a scriber as well. But this is getting more use now in the workshop for doing sort of much more accurate measuring. Earlier in the year I mentioned in one of my videos about how useful it would be to have the spindle thread protector on the Myford lathe when I've removed the chuck and I've not fitted another chuck to it at the end of the session. I couldn't find any of these commercially made on the internet or on eBay, and it's not something that Myford appear to do either. And I was contacted by a subscriber, David Ticehurst, who is a retired British engineer that now lives in Australia, and he actually offered to make a spindle protector for me. But he very kindly made me two. He made one here for me in aluminium and one out of a plastic, machinable plastic material. Both of these work beautifully on the lathe, screw on sort of nicely into position, and if I'm removing the chuck and not putting another one on immediately, I can screw these on, and that would sort of help stop any damage to the spindle thread, which would be a disaster if that happened. Here's one little fun project during the year, was to make a tiny machinist clamp. This is sort of about half the scale of one of the ones that I actually own, a Moore and Wright one, which I also made my own version of, but I thought it would be fun to make a tiny one as well, more or less just for the fun of making this really. But strangely enough, I have used this a couple of times, so it is actually quite a practical thing to have. Some other things that I've made during the year, well, as I practice cutting tapers on the Morse taper cleaners, I made a couple of Morse tapers myself, so I can use them in the tailstock of the lathe. Being Morse Taper 2, these will fit the Myford lathe and my Chinese mini lathe, so I can have centre drills in them of a couple of different size and countersink as well. And I use these all the time now. It saves keep having to change tools in the drill chuck, and I'm lucky to have 2 or 3 drill chucks which fit the Morse taper too, so I can preload them with drills of different sizes, so it's only a matter of then popping them into the tailstock. It makes the operation quite a bit faster. I also showed very recently I've made an additional carriage stop for the Myford lathe, but using the thimble from a micrometer. Again, this was a kind gift from a viewer, and I made up the mount for it, so this can be fitted onto the ways of the Myford lathe, and I can set this for very accurate stop positions for the carriage of the Myford lathe. I also made a dial indicator holder for the Myford. This is mounted onto a tool holder which I actually made well, many years ago, actually, not long after I got the Myford. I only had 2 tool holders with it, so I thought, well, I'll buy some more, because the import tool holders are not terribly expensive, but I thought it'd be great fun to have a go at making one of these. It's a complicated shape to make. All this was made by setting it at different angles in the milling machine. If you're familiar with the channel Rustanox, he's a Belgian YouTuber, and he's actually making some of these himself. His Dixon style tool holder on his lathe, although he has a much larger tool holder than the one I have, and he's machining, I think, 4 of these out of one large piece of steel, and then I guess he'll chop them up into individual holders. You know, if you know his channel, that's Rustanox, Michelle, have a look at that, because it's very interesting. He's making all of these profiles on his shaper, which is, I think, is a very, very good machine to make things like this on, but you know, worth a look if you're not familiar with them. I also made a similar holder for this dial indicator to go on my Chinese mini lathe as well. And the reason for making it this particular way is that you often want to measure a piece of round stock in the lathe for run out, so you're wanting to run this against a piece of material this way, but then you might want to run it at the end to make sure everything's concentric as well. So what you can actually do is put this onto the tool post this way, and when you finish your measurements here, you can then turn it upside down and put it on the other side of the tool holder, and simply turn the indicator around. So you can use the one tool to do both angles on a piece of work as well, and you can obviously do the same with this one as well. A lot of the things I've done in the workshop have been quite small projects, really, but I bought I think it was a car show, an Eclipse hacksaw blade holder. I was really taken with this because I do love tools made by Eclipse. I have quite a few old tools that are made by them, and I do like buying old items to use in the workshop, but this one came with a wing nut here, which I know wasn't original, because I looked on eBay and saw that they always seem to have a locking knob, so I actually made a locking knob with a nice knurled grip to it to make it look more original, if you like. But these are very useful for cutting sort of quite deep cuts in material where you can't actually get a regular shaped hacksaw through a piece of material, because the bar on the top obviously is going to restrict your movement. So again, quite a small project to do there. One tool that I use a great deal in the workshop, I did make this some time back, is this thing. It's called a finger plate, and I made a video on this and explained its uses. But if you want to look back to see what this can be used for anyone that's not familiar with them, but originally I made it with the finger out of steel. I thought it'd be quite nice to make one out of brass, so that the grip on the end here wouldn't damage material, because what you're doing basically is clamping material underneath the finger, under here, and you can use it on the milling machine or a bench drill to drill holes. This would hold it in place and hold it much more firmly than relying on holding it literally with your fingers, because if the material starts to spin, then it could be quite dangerous. So this does help, and when I still wear gloves while I'm holding this on the bench drill anyway, and I also have a clamp that I can use on it to hold this in position. So that was so these are interesting things to make, because they've got all sorts of angles and shapes, slots and tapped holes. So just making that is a very, very interesting afternoon, or in my case day's project. But that was made easy for me because another thing I was gifted during the year was a beautiful set of angle setup blocks. It says a whole range of different angles here. They're all sort of individually wrapped just to stop them from getting rusty, but you've got quite a whole range of angles. There's a 20 degree, I think it's a 10, but of course to change the various angles, of course you can add two or more than two together to give you a whole range of different angles. Every possible angle can be set with these. I mean, I do have other tools that would do this, but now I've got these, it's so much easier to drop these into the milling machine vise and then lay the material across here, and then sort of lock it all in place. Again, I've shown videos actually using these. Covered almost everything. My box angle plate here is a very, very useful item to have. And after I got this, I made 4 little T-nuts for it as well. They were made in sort of one long strip and then cut into the 4 sections. This is the storage box I made for it, but then I discovered it was quite difficult to lower it into the box, so I made a very elaborate handle for it. I had one of these handles which I picked up a few different shapes of these, which are being sold off in our local DIY store, and then just added this aluminium bar and spacers in here. I know it looks rather elaborate, but I think it's quite nice actually. Just slide that in there, and then it makes it easier to lift in and out of the box. Saves it dropping it on your fingers. Another tool that I use in the workshop on the milling machine all the time, now I've got the DRO. I'd seen these being used by other YouTubers, and it's an electronic edge finder. It runs from a couple of little batteries. I think these are, I think they're about 1.5 volts, I think. And it takes 2 of these, but it's not like a regular angle edge finder where the bottom part moves. This is fixed, the ball on the end here, and you run that up to the edge of a piece of material, and it bleeps and a light flashes in here, so you've got an audible and a visual indicator that you've reached the edge of the material. You obviously got to be very careful using this, because if you overran it too hard against a workpiece, you could obviously damage the end. But I use this all the time now, and it works so well with my DRO. I actually love this tool. It's absolutely fantastic. Strangely enough, it may be I was just lucky at the time, but I found this being sold very, very cheaply. I wish really that I bought a couple of them. This only cost me £12. I mean, they are, from what I can make out, a lot more expensive really than that. But it's a fantastic thing. The only thing is, it is very, very long. The mechanical edge finders, where the bottom part sort of moves off the edge when you reach your measurement, are much shorter. And of course this is a very large diameter. This is 20 millimeters diameter, so I luckily have a spare Morse Taper 3 ER32 collet chuck, so I can have this mounted in one of them while I'm working, and then easily switch over to another collet chuck or a drill chuck while I'm using it. But I would recommend these. They are really good. I don't, you know, you might be lucky and find one at a very, very, very low price, but sometimes with these import items you just can't understand how they can make things for this sort of price really, and make profits all the way through to the seller. But there you go. During the year I'm quite obsessed with micrometers, and I've picked up quite a few micrometers during the year, but I've been buying Mitutoyo Japanese micrometers, which I really love. I've managed to get together a set 0 to 1, 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 inch. I have sort of duplicates of these in other brands, all of them really bought second hand. The only new ones I bought was the very first micrometer I ever owned, which was a cheap Chinese import. Again, this was about £5 or £6 when I bought it. That's a metric one. But all the others, apart from the two digital ones, which were new when they were bought. And recently I bought another 0 to 1 inch Mitutoyo micrometer. I just saw this on eBay. No one had bid on it, and I put a very minimal bid on it and won it for basically the opening bid. So with postage, this was, I think, just over £9, which I thought was really good. But it's an earlier Mitutoyo micrometer, the ones that I already have. So I love using these because the digital ones are so easy to use that all the work is done for you. They'll measure in metric or imperial measurements, but there's a degree of mathematics and brain work required to use these. So I find that by using these really all the time now, I'm getting so used to using them. They're very, very accurate and a lot more fun to use. One of the ultimate reasons for having my workshop was to find an activity that would keep the old brain box going. That was one of the most important things for me, really. Well, I've covered a lot of things there. I mean, I hope you found this interesting, seeing that the roundup of things I've done. All the little jobs I've done in the workshop. There are lots of others which basically I can't quite remember them all now, so this sort of kept me pretty well occupied right through the year. Unfortunately now the weather's got on most days quite cold. It's a little bit warmer today. This is the Friday before Christmas that I'm doing this, and I'm aiming to put this video up just before Christmas Day, with the means of wishing everyone out there in YouTube land, all the amateur professional engineers and home workshop users, and all the lovely people that have subscribed to my channel since I set it up about a year and a half ago. I checked this morning, I've got 778 subscribers now, which is, for me, is a fantastic achievement, and thank you very, very much to all of those subscribers, and all the lovely comments and friends I'm making all around the world now, which is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, I'd really like to wish all of you a fantastic Christmas and a peaceful, safe and happy New Year, and I'm going to try and get into the workshop as much as I possibly can during next year and make some more projects. I've got one new engine project that I've actually started, but it's very early days for that one yet, so it's going to be a while before I can actually show any of that, and I really want to show that sort of built, because it's going to be so different to anything I've made before, so there may be hopefully a few surprises for everyone there. So thanks for joining me again in the workshop, and I hope to see you very, very soon. Bye bye for now.